Hi everyone and welcome back. Tim here from Island Scenics. Now in this video we're going to check out how I built this budget but yet nice looking trestle bridge. So let's get started. We've got this gap to fill. It's 135 foot in length and 50 foot in depth. That's in N scale at 1/60th scale. As you can see, I've already plaster cast it with plaster bandage just to make the structure. I'm then going to add in the sculpture mould all round for the bed of the river. Just getting really mucky really at this stage, and it's one of the nicest feelings when I get to do me models is just get my hands in the sculpture mould and get messy. As you can see here, we also add it up on the sides, and that's going to create the rock faces. What I've got here is some ready rocks are made out of plaster cast, and I'll make them damp on the back so that they can stick to the sculpture mould quite well. And I'll do this just to build up the rock formations of the edges of the gorge area down behind where the trestle bridge will go. Once I've got several of these in place, I then get myself a bit of sculpture mould and just stick it around the edges so that they can start to blend in rather than look quite jagged and out of place. I like using sculpture mould because it gives you a little bit of time to play with really. It doesn't set straight away. So I get myself my little pick and just create grooves and edges that seem to look natural and blend the rocks together. And as you can see here, this is once the sculpture mould has dried what it's going to look down there. Now we're going to get down to painting, and the colour choice is your own really. I'm going to go for an orangey kind of look, so I'm going to start off with a bit of burnt sienna, and that's going to be my base colour. I'll water it down. Couldn't exactly tell you the ratios, but a bit of acrylic, burnt sienna and lots of water. Mix it all up and let it go completely all over the area I'm working on. As you can see, it's dried. I move on to my next colour, which is burnt umber, and again this is just going to darken up the areas. As you can see here, again it's another wash, so I just pull it on from the top and let it all soak into all the gaps, all the crevices, and it will do its job for me when it dries. Just going to speed this up a bit. As you can see, just adding it all over the area. And then finally we're going to move on to a buff colour, which is an extremely light colour, and that's just going to be put all over the top of this, and then we'll wait for it all to dry and it'll create a really nice looking scene for what I want down here. As you can see, the afterward effect isn't too bad. Now this next stage you don't really have to do, but I like to do it every so often. A bit of dry brushing over the edges of the rock, and it will just help the definition of the rocks and that lot stand out just that little bit extra. I have got here some really coarse Woodland Scenic talus alongside with some garden dirt, which is very finer rocks, and then completely fine some peat that I've grinded down. So I add the neat Mod Podge all over the area I'm going to start putting this dirt down on, and the first things I add to it is the coarse talus from Woodland Scenics, just to create more rocks. And then after that I'll start to sprinkle down the dirt from the garden, and that will just go around areas that I feel have built up more of the rock falls coming down into the gorge area. And last of all, I will add the very fine peat, and that will just break up all the areas and bring it all together. I also add bits of twigs just down into the areas where I think they fall off of the edge of the rocks and that lot, or come down the river and get stuck in between rocks that are stopping it from flowing completely down. And I'll just randomly place these that look good to the eye. Next, with a clean brush, I'll just brush away any tops of the rocks. Now we add diluted Mod Podge, which is Mod Podge and water, the usual mixture that most people know, and this will hold the dirt all in place so it doesn't go anywhere. Now we're going to move on to making the trestle bridge itself. I'm going to be using Gorilla Wood Glue because it is water resistant. I'm going to be using matchsticks and barbecue skewers. I've created this template. My drawings aren't brilliant, but these are straight lines, so I couldn't really mess this up. We've got the barbecue skewers, some snippers, and some wood glue. Now, what we're going to do is just snip the barbecue skewers with the snippers because it's a lot easier than trying to cut them with a knife. Now, I do hold down both ends when you're snipping because what generally happens is once you snip the barbecue skewer, it will fly off. As you can see here. Yep, now, if I don't hold down the barbecue skewers like this, that will happen, and where the pointy end's facing towards me, I'll get poked by it. I then get a bit of sandpaper and I sand down both ends of the barbecue skewers just to make them neat and tidy. Then we'll get this razor saw and just scruff up the edges just for a little bit of extra detail. Here I get some masking tape and I'll just put this down over the template, and this will hold the barbecue skewers in place while I put the glue on to fasten the first couple of bits of cross structure. Once these beams are on, I'll then put something heavy on it to weigh down for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now that the first two have dried, the structure's not going to go anywhere, so I'll continue with the same sort of method, adding glue down and pulling the matchsticks to create the bents. Now, the next stage, I'm using a thin strip of balsa wood to create the crossovers on each of the bents in between the matchsticks. And guys, if you are new here and you are enjoying what you're seeing so far in this video, please hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it. It'll notify you when my next videos come out. I do have a lot more planned and coming in the near future. Anyway, let's get back to this build. Once I've finished the bent and the glue has all dried, I put it into a tub of watered down brown acrylic paint. I use a yogurt pot with water in it just to hold it down underneath so it's submerged. Wood floats. Once it's been in for quite a bit of time, sometimes leave overnight, but I usually leave for about an hour or two. I'll take it out and just pop it into a container and leave it to dry. Okay, we've managed to put all bents in place of different sizes as well. As you see there, it's looking alright, but there's still some more to do. We've got to pull in the walkway up at the top and the side parts that are going to hold in. I'm going to start off with the balsa wood once again and just create a platform beside the tracks for people to walk across. As you can see, it's as simple as getting some wood glue, pulling this down in place, and I'm using toothpicks just to poke into the polystyrene just to hold it in place, bend the billet wood round the track, sticking it on the dabs of wood glue, and at the other end fastening another toothpick and then leaving it to dry. At this stage I'm adding wood glue to the top of the balsa wood that I put down so that I can put these individual strips. Now these strips are very easily made, just out of a 1-inch bit of balsa wood again, and just sliced up with a craft knife to very small bits, added on with tweezers, and each individual plank isn't exactly the same, so it's going to give that little bit of characteristics to it. Well, that's what I think anyway. As you can see, the girts are in place. Now, those are the parts that go horizontal across the trestle bridge. And the top platform has all gone in place and it's looking really, really smart. Now, I'm going to try some painting here. No, in the end, I didn't use the paintbrush. This was going to take quite some time. So I did use the airbrush for the first time, but I didn't record it. But here is what it looked like at the end. Now, I'm really, really happy with how it's turned out. I'm just putting on some fire barrels or fire buckets, whatever you want to call those ones, just at the top of the trestle bridge. Now we're going to add in the retaining wall. It's just going to slide in the back here. And in theory, that kind of stops a lot of rockfall going straight down and taking the bridge out. Now what we're going to move on is just start filling in the gaps. As some of you probably had noticed so far, that not all of the bents reached quite to the bottom. There's a bit of a gap. So we're just adding extra dirt and peat down to the bottom here, and then putting in that diluted Mod Podge again after I've created the area that will fill in the spaces. What we're also going to do is just with some plaster of Paris, is just once again up on the rock faces, just to on the end of a knife place it just where the gaps are again, where the bents didn't quite make it to the rock face. And now that it will, once the plaster of Paris has set, it will look as if the bents are in the correct place. Paint them up so they blend in with the rest of the rocks. Now we're going to just add a tree. Again, there's another bit of detail in this little section of the railway. And some other bits like some bushes and whatnot just underneath the trestle bridge. There we have it, the first train going over the trestle bridge. Thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Leave us some comments and the thumbs up. We'll see you next time.